Hi, I'm Bob, and welcome to Between the Sheets, where we look at Microsoft Excel and related technologies. Here's a common scenario in Excel that surprisingly doesn't have a common or easy solution. You have a column of full names where some names have a middle name or a middle initial, some don't, some just have a first name and a last name, and you want a formula that strips out all middle names or initials and doesn't ruin the names that don't have them, and put them all into a column. So first I'm going to show you how to do it without a formula. That is, how can you separate the names into individual columns? But sometimes you don't want to do that. Sometimes you really do need a formula. So I'll show you that afterwards. So let's take a look, see how it works. So here we have a short list of names, and you'll notice that some of the names have full middle names, some of them have middle initials, some of them don't. And we're going to use a technique first that doesn't require any kind of formula at all. I'm going to use flash fill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a few columns here. So I'm going to create a column for first name, last name, and then I will call it, again, full name, no middles. And maybe I'll just use Format Painter for that. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is in this first name column, I'm just going to start typing. And I can let Excel automatically fill in. Now, what happens when I get to the next cell down here and start typing in a different first name? Notice as soon as I type in that first letter, it gives me these suggestions that, oh yeah, we know what you want. You want this first name, so I'll just enter. And now I'll go to the last name column, and flash fill is going to work again. So I really have to type in only once that last name. I'll let Excel do the rest of the work. And it recognizes the last names as well as it recognizes the full names, the first names rather. And now to put them together here in column D, I'll just concatenate. So I'm going to say equals first name, ampersand, and I'm going to open up a double quote, put in a space, close a double quote, another ampersand, and grab the last name. There we go. And now I can autofill. I'll just double click the autofill dot. And there we go. So that works pretty well. But maybe you really need this as a single formula, and separating the names manually like this isn't right for your needs. That's where we have to use a complicated formula. But here's the upshot. Excel does an excellent job of extracting text and finding text from left to right, but there isn't any built-in way to find text backwards from right to left, not even in the public beta editions. So we have to do some gymnastics to extract text at the end of a string. The first thing I'm going to do is just select and delete these three columns. We're done with this technique here. So I'm going to right click and delete. Let's go back here. I'll stretch that open. And we need 7 functions to make this work. Now, most of these we've covered in previous videos, so I won't go over them again, but here's some short descriptions of what each one is. So the left function will find text from the left to the right, and you tell it what cell you're looking to grab the text from, how many characters you want, and it just gives it to you. The find function does just what it sounds like. You tell it what character you want to look for and what the cell reference is. Why is the cell reference the first argument in the left function and the last argument in the find function? I don't know. I guess the two programmers at Microsoft, I guess there are two programmers at Microsoft who wrote these and maybe they didn't talk to each other. I don't know, but we just have to follow the syntax. The trim command will trim off empty spaces at the beginning or the end of a piece of text. The right function this is kind of a tease because you give it a cell reference and how many characters you want to get back, and it'll start on the right and go to the left for that many number of characters. But that's all it does. It extracts there is no ability to go and find anything with the right function. The substitute function also does just what it sounds like. You tell it, here's the cell I want to look at, what's the old text that I'm looking for, what's the new text I want to substitute with. The repeat function, you tell it, here's a character that I want to repeat and how many times I want to repeat it. And then the last function that's involved here is the length function. And this is a function that exists in a lot of programming languages. And you tell it, hey, what's the length of this particular cell? And it tells you simply how many characters are in that particular cell, including spaces. So let me diagram how this function is going to work before we even type the function in. So the sequence is this. We have a name, and using the left function, this is the easy part, we say, okay, find that first name. And it's going to find it because all it has to do is look for text until it gets to a space and we're done. And then it's going to concatenate, kind of like what we did a moment earlier. It's going to concatenate the last name. We're not quite up there yet. So after it finds the first name, it's going to say, okay, we've got this text string, we have this name, count how many characters there are in this entire name, and then using the repeat function, put in that many characters in between the words, in between the first and the last name, or in between the first and the middle, and between the middle and the last name. Now, once it does that, it says, okay, now we can grab that last name because we know how many spaces there are, so we can take that. And then using the trim function, we can then go and trim off all of those extra spaces. So now we know what the first name is because we have that earlier. We have the last name because we just grabbed it, and now we can put the two of them together and we have our result. So here is the actual formula that we're going to use. And this is assuming, like we have in our spreadsheet, that the full name is in cell A4, and we're going to autofill this. We have this monstrosity. And you can see, I'm going to go and type this in, but you can see here are all of the different functions that we're going to use. And I'll do the best I can to explain this to you as we go. So back in our worksheet, let's go and do this. So I'm going to say equals left. There's that function. And we're going to say, okay, let's go to cell A4, comma, and now let's put in the find function. So we're nesting the find function inside. So we're going to find, and it shows you the syntax there. What are we looking for? We're looking for a space, comma, where are we looking for it? We're looking in cell A4. Okay, so now we're going to close the find function. We're going to close the left function. So I'm going to put in an ampersand so we concatenate just like we did a few minutes ago. Now I'm going to put in the trim function. And the right function is nested inside it. And the substitute function. So in the substitute function, we're going to say, okay, yeah, let's go to cell A4. And the old text we're looking for is an empty space. And the new text, now we're going to use the repeat function. And what are we repeating? Well, we're going to repeat that empty space. How many times are we going to do it? Well, the number of characters in that first name, in that full name. So here's where we use the length function. The length of what? The length of A4. Now we've got to close 1, 2, 3 parentheses. So we're back in the right function, and then let's put in again the length function. That's cell A4. And now we're going to close that length function, and we close the right function, and we close the trim function, and that's all she wrote. So I'm going to hit enter, and it takes out that middle name. Let's go here and autofill to the bottom. Double click the autofill dot, And hey, look at that. So whether we had a full name or an initials or nothing, this formula grabs just the first name and the last name, and it doesn't ruin any names that didn't have anything in the middle. Now, if you have a lot of data, you still need to review it because some people use two first names. So for example, is Jane her middle name or is her first name Sarah Jane? And this is something that you have to figure out. Some people have last names that are two words. And it'll end up like that, and that's really not right. You can try fixing this in Visual Basic or Python programming languages, but how many exceptions can you build in? So, except for a few special cases, this method will work almost all the time. So until next time, my name is Bob, and this has been Between the Sheets.